for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The Ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
There we are. Hello there, buddy.
The Ballad of.
The Ballad of. That went pretty quick. As I said, I jumped on about a minute and 30 before we went live, finishing some commitments, and nothing like cutting it a bit fine, eh, buddy? So we'll see if we're wait for some of those comments to come in to see whether we're actually streaming to the places we're meant to be streaming to, and see how we go, eh?
Nothing there that I can see.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe what have we got? Some. Hopefully, we don't have any issues. That wouldn't be very good, would it? Oh, we'll wait and see. Well, it's really only just because for me, like most people, probably jump on a bit later anyway because they're here to hear from you, aren't they? So, you know, not here to hear from me.
Well, I have said we should switch your stuff to the end so people can turn off.
You did put it there, but I did note some people, quite a few people commented to say that, you know, they're actually okay with my meandering, my blurbing and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, we'll see how we go. But look at it, Rumble's clear. Love the awakening. Thank you for confirming. Pickle Mixes here as well. Good to see. So we got some people jumping on board. We're all good, brother. We're all good. And how was your
club? Your fan club said we had to keep going. That's not so good.
The fan club said we had to keep going beyond 100 episodes. So anyway, that's all good. Yeah. Well, do you reckon you got another? Or someone said 200 episodes. You reckon you got another 100 in you, mate, or what?
Oh, easy.
Yeah, easy. There's always something to talk about, isn't there?
Amazingly, there always is.
Yeah, especially around the world at the moment, mate. There's not much stopping us. Not stopping at coming with bloody wars and, you know, fears of wars, and climate doesn't change, and, you know, petrol, fuel, all that sort of stuff.
Did you say the climate doesn't change? You've been locked up like that. That's misinformation, mate.
Heresy even. Anyway, I think I know what's going on with. Let me just check my X, because X is doing things differently now. You've actually got to share it, which is really weird. Post this. I'm going to say live now, because X doesn't automatically make it come up live on my page, which is really weird. But anyway, I'm streaming through to, by the looks of it, on YouTube, though YouTube might be censoring a bit too, so I don't know. But and I'm definitely there on Rumble, which is good. I can see people commenting from Rumble. So anyway, we might as well just see how we go, mate, and see how far they let us get to tonight. So
yeah, it's enough.
As I said, that's enough to start. Yep. Well, as I said, I don't have a great deal, buddy, but let's look at it. There we go. Luke is on YouTube. Good to see. G'day there, Luke. That'd be good. The climate of politicians. What's that? The climate of politicians thinking they are rulers seems to never change. 100% agree. Yep, absolutely. They want to be your god. Yep, 100%. No, good to see. Anyway, Bruce, South Australia's got an election on Saturday. This is the 21st. It's here already. This Saturday, the 21st. And how to vote? Oh, early voting is opened up on Saturday, and they changed the rules. So before it used to be, you know, if you were working on the Saturday or you're overseas or whatever, but they changed the rules so anybody can actually vote early. No one's going to ask you any questions. It's been a bit like that for years anyway. They haven't really checked it too much. People just go in there and go, yeah, I'm working, I'm going to be overseas. But now they've basically changed the rules because I think they understand that's what's happening. So people can go and vote any time now since Saturday up until the election. So Bruce,
now
yeah, go.
I've got a bit of an idea there. We've learned from the US experience that one of the key ways to fraudulently vote is via the non-on-the-day face-to-face voting. So, the mail-in, pre-voting, etc., is most vulnerable to fraud, more so than you turning up on the day, getting your name crossed off and voting there and then in the booth. Now, here's an idea for you. What about if we declare election days public holidays? And let's face it, we've got enough other stupid public holidays. What about we drop off a couple of Pride or Aboriginal public holidays? What about just ditch a couple of those and make your election day a public holiday? And so there goes all the excuses from the great bulk of people who say, I can't do it because I'm working. And only allow non-face-to-face voting in verified circumstances. How about we do that and rule off that major avenue for fraud?
Oh, no disagreements there for me, but the powers to be obviously won't want that, and we know why. But that almost sounds like a sensible idea, Bruce. I mean, God forbid that you'd come out with something like that. I mean, that's just astounding that you'd come out with something like that. But anyway, never mind.
Baffling.
I wonder how many people agree. I don't know. What do you think? Put it in the comments and see if anybody agrees with Bruce. What do you reckon, peeps? Do you agree with Bruce on that concept? But many people will probably come back, Bruce, and go, let's just abolish voting altogether, the libertarian way, and say we just aren't forced to vote. We just vote if we want to.
I like that idea too. I really like that idea too, because you find in the US there are actually 3 ways you can vote. You can vote for the left cheek, the right cheek, or not vote at all. And not voting at all is a way of influencing the vote, because the first thing your party has to do is to actually interest you enough to get you out to vote. So that's a good thing. Now, having said that, I remain with what I said. If you are going to vote, you've got to vote in person on the day, get signed off, show ID, unless you've got very specific verified reasons why you can't.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, agreed. And thank you for your comment, Love the Awakening. There you go. Looking forward to our 2 hours that we present, which is nice feedback. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's nice. So the only thing that worries me, though, Bruce, with that sort of thing is that, I mean, look, I just think the large percentage of people that centre that really don't have a passion, the people, like us that really follow politics and believe that a country, is going to turn to pot, will get out there and will get active. The activist side on the left, the progressives and all that, encourage all theirs people to go and get motivated and activated. The centre people would go, oh great, I don't have to vote, so I'm not going to vote. But guess who probably gets initially it's going to turn to absolute pot for a number of years, because you'll get all the progressives who are already in tune with all this, all there. So you'll have a few years of Liberal, a few years of Greens and Animal Party, probably leading the country, mate. I don't know if that's a good idea, Bruce. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not so sure you're right. I think there'll be a lot of people turn out this election and vote for Pauline. So I think if you're selling a good product, you'll attract the people out.
Yep. And just so people know, I am actually dropping another video tonight. It's a pre-record. I'm dropping it tonight, and it's actually to do with the South Australian election. So anybody that's watching, that's interested, it has got a bit of a, obviously, Christian conservative tilt to it, because that's my new platform is based around that. So and how the voting. So it covers a little bit about the Australian Christian lobby and Turning Point Australia and how they voted. But just to give people a little bit of a snippet about that, Bruce, and then we can get on to your stuff, I'm just going to let people listen to our fearless leader here in South Australia, Peter Malinauskas, who's become very passionate. He's almost got the Joe Biden marketing team behind him, I reckon. He's kind of really pushing the hard tone, and we're the only party that can lead you into the future and out of what's going on. But anyway, I was in a bit of a cheeky mood on the weekend, Bruce, and I put this little meme together, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. I'm going to bring this to the stage now. All right, listen.
I lead a centrist, disciplined, united, committed team. I lead a centrist,
Anyway, that's what I think about that. Anybody that follows Australian politics, Bruce, would know that the Greens are not centrist. They're far from it. And if you're a Christian, they are probably the biggest party that is against the Christian worldview and the Christian ethos. And for Peter Malinauskas and the Labor government to preference or to recommend their voter base to preference second the Greens 31 times just shows you where Labor sits in regards to Australian politics. So I'm not going to watch that, but just Bruce, before we move on to you and get comments from you, I did want to share one more clip. And I know I've been very critical of the Liberal Party, and I watched the leaders debate. And look, I wasn't massively, inspired by it, but I do got to say that I reckon the hat tip of the whole event was a little bit of a comeback from Ashton Hearn. I've got to give her kudos and credit where credit's due. So I'm just going to play this little bit, which kind of ties into what I've just played. I'm just going to show that now for you, all right? As I'm bringing this on stage, and I'm going to play that now for you.
John Howard had the principle and the conviction to put One Nation last. Was he wrong?
John Howard probably thought more of the Labor Party back then than I do now of this current state Labor government. But on the preferences, what I would say is this, that I'm willing to take some advice from the Premier on a range of things, but it's certainly not preferences. We're speaking about the Labor Party, who talks a big game about supporting AUKUS, and it's this big national endeavour, and that is true. And we're going to be centred here in South Australia, those opportunities. But then what does he do? He preferences the Greens number 2. The Greens who are anti-AUKUS, they want to tear it up and throw it out. And so I will be lectured to by the government and the Premier on preferences when he stops preferencing the South Australian Greens.
Boom tish. I reckon good. Called him out on what he was talking about. So there you go. So fancy Peter Malinauskas having a crack at the Liberal Party. Now, in this video that I'm going to drop tonight, it'll show where Liberals put One Nation on the ticket, right? So they didn't put them at the end as they do the Greens, which they should, because the Greens are polar opposite to their worldview. But Labor preferenced the Greens on 31 occasions in number 2. And Liberals, as you'll see, did it about halfway through the ticket at number 3, 4, and 5. So he's a bit cheeky calling her out on how they preferenced One Nation when you see Peter Malinauskas preferencing the Greens to the extent that they did.
And plenty of people like me don't forgive the Liberals for framing and jailing Pauline 30 years ago. That's not something to be proud of.
No. Amen. Amen, brother. Amen. As I said, kudos to her, Ashton, for being so quick thinking on that response to Malinauskas. But as I said, the Liberal Party is still the Liberal Party. They're still full of moderates. So they've got a long way to go, if ever, to get back into the hearts of the majority of hard-working Australians' minds to vote for them. We'll see what Saturday brings. After Saturday, we'll see where they end up on the whole lot. And
by the way, I don't support AUKUS either. Australia is looking at spending billions of dollars on a small number of very niche high-end weapon systems. Now that money could be better spent A, on other weapons, and B, not on weapons at all. I have participate in expeditionary warfare in Australian uniform. And one thing I've learned is that, we go to Iraq, we go to Afghanistan, heaven forbid we go to Iran. You don't need nuclear submarines. You need a small or you need a large number of low-tech items like individual citizens with AKs, like homemade bombs, like drones. And if Australia, instead of spending literally billions of dollars on half a dozen platforms, and let's face it, they'd be utterly useless in the Persian Gulf right now. Can't get him in through the Strait of Hormuz. If you can, it's very shallow water, very adverse operating environment for submarines, and there's nothing to sink. Iran doesn't have a navy. So utterly useless at the moment. So look, I don't support AUKUS either. I think it's a very poor use of the funds. I'd much rather see it spent on nation building. How about if we'd spend it on keeping some of our refineries open and exploiting the resources that we've got, instead of being in the stupid position now where we've got 30 days worth of diesel in the country?
Yep, exactly right. And, like we've talked about Karl Stefanovic before, but he's just recently had Alex Antic and Gerard Rennick on. Brilliant interview. I don't know if you've seen it, but Gerard hammers that point home as well about, both Alex and Gerard come into politics later in life. Well, they haven't been in there for that long, but both of them agree that the parties have led Australia down over the decades. They said we are fully self-sustained country with all the resources we need. We put a bloody border around the country. We're self-sustained, and with today's technology with drones, I mean, who needs these billion-dollar submarines that aren't going to be ready till bloody 35 or 45, and all this other stuff, when you could be investing in, like Iran did, in these much cheaper drones. And other infrastructure that could defend our nation and not get involved in the crazy, bloody globalist-inspired wars and CIA and other Mossad and, regime change, organisations, and defend ourselves. We're fully self-sustained, but they've sold us up the river. They've sold us, and we need politicians, more politicians like Gerard and Alex, and obviously others. One Nation's getting, quite a bit of traction, and then doing everything they can to try and cull them.
Yeah. Well, let's see where the world is in a year's time.
Yeah, those that have been prepared have got themselves prepared, as you've wisely done in lots of ways, and that's why we do the shows, so we can get other people thinking about preparedness, because that's all we can do. When the poo hits the fan and it goes really dire, it's going to be really interesting days. We look at the fuel situation now. That's just one thing. I mean, our trucks stop, our groceries stop, our farmers stop delivering stuff. I mean, fuel is a massive, massive thing. Now, a country like Australia that can refine and get its own oil and fuel, I mean, for us not to be prepared beyond 30 days is astronomically bloody incompetent. Absolutely. I mean, look, all our farmers and all industry, trucking relies on diesel. And here's the bloody left side of politics say, oh, it comes to the electric trucks. How many electric trucks do you see driving down the road? Bunch of gooses. But anyway, fired up today.
Dear. Well, we'll all find out over the next year. We'll all find out where we really are. Tide's going out.
Well, Liberal and Labor have messed around, and we're all about to find out.
Yep. Mayfo.
I like it. I like it. Yes, it is. We'll try to be a family show. We try. I don't want to be too censorious, but Yeah.
Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. I was going to put weekly wrap 99/100, knock off the final show, and then I could retire. But there was so much commentary. I reckon we had triple the number of comments that we normally get, and unfortunately, quite a few of them wanted you to keep going.
Well, Well, you know, I don't do this for me. I do it for the audience, because to bring your wisdom and knowledge and research to them. You know, it's not about me. Never really been about me. I just see the future that's not real bright for my kids and grandkids, mate. And that's really the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, brother.
And I'm in the same place. And I thank you once again for this wonderful platform that you provide each week, and for giving me the funny guy to sort of bounce ideas off. It's great. I couldn't do it by myself. I've tried it. It doesn't work. So, yeah, unfortunately, we need you too.
Yeah, no, well, I know if I'm such a funny guy, but people get a lot out of laughing at me rather than with me, because it's just I'm a bit of a klutz. So, but anyway, good on you, brother. Love you lots.
That's a good form of humour too, I suppose.
Well, I guess. Being dumb.
Right. Righto. Where are we going this week? So a fair bit of it's going to be the Iran war update again. And I don't apologise for that, because I view this as potentially a world history changing event. I think this is far more serious than it's being portrayed in the West. And I think the West is losing this war, and it's going to usher in a new era, Laurel and Hardy. So I think it's important, and it's occupying a fair bit of my vigilance at the moment. So yeah, about half of what we're going to talk about is that. But we've still got some of our normal topics. So we've got an interesting story in the easy being green segment this week, with a report that CO2 is not only a plant food, and we know that it is, but it's more than that. It improves the water efficiency of plants as well. So that's we'll discuss how they do that, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
In the health segment, we had a story from America where a recent large survey said that the majority of Americans, 56%, now believe that the COVID shots were the cause of mass deaths, and it's not something we're going to disagree with. And the timing's bad for Australia, because we've just set up our own CDC, our Disease Control Centre, and the new CEO there's already said that one of her major tasks is going to be to address vaccine hesitancy. Now, my question is, how would you address that? And is it appropriate to address it? You know, it's a bit like saying the captain of the Titanic, as the ship's going down, said one of his major tasks is to address sinking hesitancy. What about if you admit that the concern about it is genuine and well-founded? That might be a better place, I think.
The name's not Jane Halton, is it?
Oh, look, I can't remember. It might be double timing with the Karen. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Now, in finance, what are your prices for fuel in South Australia at the moment, Mark?
Ranging from $2 to $2.50, $2.30, I think. They're all over the place.
I'm mainly a diesel buyer, so I'm watching that, and that seems to have gone up more than the petroleum fuels. And typical price would be around the $2.70 mark, which is about where it was a week ago. So that's gone up. What's that, about 80 or 90 cents since the liberation of Iran started?
Yeah, big hit, mate. I was saying, we've got a diesel. We've got a couple of unleaded and a diesel.
Yeah. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. In the diversity divide segment, the UK is now adding a new item of emergency kit to public transport, so trains, buses, and also places where the public gather. So you'd be aware that in the last 5 or 10 years, defibrillators have appeared everywhere in public places, you know, post offices, sporting grounds, train stations. We've even got one on our fire truck, actually. Well, the UK is now... Oh, I know I'll fix that.
Yeah. Oh, he's under the musket. Where's your sippy cup, mate? Watch that laptop.
Nice and cool out. In fact, it's been drizzly all day. So I'm back in the musket. Anyway, where am I going with this? So in addition to your defibrillator at the train station, you're going to have a stab kit. So an item for dealing with the victims of mass stabbings. That's going to appear everywhere in the UK as well. So I'm going to talk about that.
Wow. Wonder if you had that
And-
bloody 20, 30 years ago.
What's changed, Mark?
What has changed
changed?
indeed. hmm
And Pickle Mix said they're almost $4 a gallon in the US. You guys are lucky, even though your gallon is smaller than an imperial gallon. So a US gallon is 3.78 litres and an imperial gallon is 4.54 litres. So your gallon prices are not that far off our litre prices. So, yeah, while you think you're hard done by, we're paying 270 Australian dollars per litre. So, yeah, I'd rather be buying it by the gallon in the US at the moment, although not in California, of course, which has massive state taxes.
Yeah. California, gotta love it. Does anybody still live there? That's bloody sensible.
Yeah. And finally, in the MISC section, I'm going to slap the wrist of Isuzu Australia because I had a stick jump up off the road and smack the side step of my D-Max the other day. And it cracked a bit of the plastic trim that's at each end of the side step. So I thought I'd just pop in. And this is a genuine Isuzu article. This isn't something from TJM or anything. So I just popped past the dealer and said, can you get me another one of those? And they said, we'll look it up and send you a quote. And I thought, that doesn't sound good. So a small piece of plastic, which I'll show you shortly, $232.
They make a lot
And
of money
this is
after,
not-
aftermarket.
This is not something special that they've got to do a special run on. This is a current model vehicle, and that is a standard Isuzu accessory. So they are injection molding these things by the 1,000, and they reckon it's $232. Well, Isuzu, you can get stuffed. I'll pull it off. I'll do some sort of repair myself, and if it looks like rubbish, I'll just leave it off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, or worst case is go to a Wreckers and see if there's a late model one that's wrecked and you get one off that.
No, just pinch one off somewhere in the street. That'd be easier.
The parking lot in the supermarket. Like, oh, there's one like mine. Oh, thanks, I'll have that.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I couldn't imagine you'd do that. Not the man I got to know over this time.
So it's update time, and updates we have. So let's do the Iran war update. So
That's a big one, hey?
this is now, let's call it 2 weeks in. It's about day 16, but let's say it's day 14 of the Iran war. Remember the one that was only going to take a week? Well, that's taken twice as long already. So what's happened?
What was it? 2 weeks to flatten the curve, Bruce.
2 weeks to flatten Iran.
And Palestine, bit of a theme there, isn't there?
So what are we doing here? So what's happened in the last week? So the Americans / Israelis, and like I said last week, I'm just going to say the Americans, it's easier. The Americans, or maybe I should just say the Israelis, and everyone can assume that includes the Americans, because obviously it does.
It does, yeah. But when you say one, it's okay. When you say the other, it's anti-Semitic, Bruce. So, but anyway.
Okay, so the Emiralis have been pounding Iran just the same as they did in the first week. They've done it in the second week. And you're getting almost daily scorecards, a bit like during the Vietnam War where they did the body counts. Well, for Iran, we're getting these daily, very impressive scorecards delivered by Hegseth and others. And they'll tell you things like, in the last week we struck 15,000 targets, we've destroyed blah, blah, blah. And the US believes they've destroyed all of Iran's Navy and Air Force. And they think that's the fact that they're telling you all this tells you that these are their war goals. Their war goals are to rack up large amounts of equipment destroyed and people killed. And that's because that's what they're concentrating on. That's what they're reporting on. And that looks impressive superficially. And in fact, so impressive is that Trump has pretty much already said that the war is won. And in fact, on day 10, and I think we're day 15 or 16 now, Trump said that the war was very complete, that the US military had annihilated the Navy and Air Force of Iran, and that things were moving on ahead of schedule. And he said the only thing they've still got to do is take over the Strait of Hormuz. And And I think his optimism is based on the sorts of reports that he's getting and retweeting. So he said that things are going well, it's pretty much over, and that Iran has no has no navy, no communications, and no air force left. So that seems to be what he's basing his assessment of the war on. Now, if that's true, he's not obviously a military historian like I am, or he would have seen where this sort of claim goes wrong in the past. And a great example was the Vietnam War, because you had the same sort of situation in the Vietnam War. The Americans had air superiority, if not supremacy. They dropped massive amounts of bombs over many years, and in the end they lost. And the reason they lost was encapsulated in this conversation that was reported at the peace talks afterwards. So what it says, there was a famous conversation between one of the US negotiators, Colonel Harry Summers, and one of the Vietnamese generals, what was his name? Col Chu. And it said, in Hanoi in April 1975, just after President Gerald Ford conceded defeat, Colonel Summers, then the chief of the US delegation's negotiating team, was chatting with his North Vietnamese counterpart, Colonel Tu. And he said, you know, you never defeated us on the battlefield, not once. And the Vietnamese colonel sort of screwed up his face and said, true, but irrelevant. So the reason that the US lost the Vietnam War, despite the fact that they won every combat in it, they had air superiority, they dropped vast amounts of bombs, they blew the country back into the Stone Age, but they still lost because the war did not turn on how much stuff got blown up. The war turned on, as we've said, in asymmetric war, the weaker side wins by not losing and the stronger side loses by not winning. So after 10 years, the Americans ruined their economy, spent vast amounts of money, suffered 50,000 dead. And at the end of it, the people at home got tired of it. They got sick of paying for it. They got sick of seeing it on their television. And in the end, the government fell and the troops came home. So the Americans thought they were winning or fighting a bomb them all to hell war, but they weren't. The Vietnamese were fighting a be still standing in some form at the end war, and they were, and that's why they won.
For survival. It was like their way of survival.
All they had to do was to still be standing at the end, and they were. And this declaring victory early on the basis of an shock and awe campaign is a repeated mistake of Western militaries, US in particular. And you might remember this famous picture where then US President George Bush, he claimed victory 8 weeks into the Iraq War. So this is 8 weeks into 2003's war for Iraq. He stood on the deck of a US aircraft carrier with that banner behind him that said mission accomplished, and said, 8 weeks in, we've won. Well, had they? He was basing it on the shock and awe air campaign, but they hadn't won, because 2 years later, I was in Iraq working in a US military hospital just north of Baghdad, where we were treating battle casualties at the rate of 100 a day. And in fact, that war did not officially end until 8 years in, when the US admitted defeat and withdrew. And that was after they lost 4,500 troops and dropped who knows what tonnage of bombs. So 8 weeks in, based on the initial shock and awe, the US president said, we've won. 8 years later, they left in defeat. So that's an example of how you don't want to declare victory based on, one, the wrong victory conditions. You know, we bombed you all to hell. Yeah, so what? And also based on what it looked like early on. So they lost that. And it is very common in wars to get this, what I call the home by Christmas effect. So at the start of wars, people are very optimistic that they're going to be easy and short. And that was true in the First World War, if you remember. You know, it started in August 1914, and they thought they'd be home by Christmas. Didn't end till November 1918. So once again, early on, they thought it'd be easy and quick and, you know, a bit of a jolly adventure, but it grew into something far bigger. And that's what wars do.
Yep.
And this is likely to be happening in the current Iran war because it is escalating. You know, early on, the US killed the Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and started dismantling many of the major cities. But something new happened this week when Trump shifted his focus and bombed, as he said, the hell out of Karg Island. Now, Karg Island is a large oil terminal way up the north end of the Gulf. And it's really important because the Persian Gulf is very shallow. So there are very few places you can actually put a terminal to bring a super tanker in to load it with oil. And so almost all of the Iranian oil exports go via Karg Island, you know, almost up to Iraq, end of the Persian Gulf. And 90% of the Iranian oil exports go out of there. And believe it or not, the Iranians are still sailing tankers through the Persian Gulf and out through the Strait of Hormuz and exporting their stuff. That seems a bit odd to me. It's a wonder the Americans aren't boarding or sinking their ships, but so far they haven't. Anyway, the US has just struck, and in other words, crippled Iran's major oil export terminal. And in my opinion, this was a very bad idea because this, you know, if Iran can't export their oil, what's to stop them preventing everybody else from exporting their oil? You know, if we've destroyed Karg Island, why shouldn't they just go, well, we'll destroy Bahrain, we'll destroy UAE, we'll destroy Al Fujairah, Kuwait, right? What's to stop them simply destroying all of the oil infrastructure in the Gulf? They got nothing to lose if they've already had theirs lost. So I think the suggestion that Karg Island would be targeted for destruction is an extremely poor move. It should have been kept as a threat because once you've played that card, it's played. Much better to have the I'll bomb Karg Island card in your hand as a threat than it is to actually play that card. And the Americans have just played that card. So as I said, what's to stop Iran from turning around and saying, okay, if that's how you want to play it, we're going to blow up all of your oil infrastructure. And indeed, that's what they've done this week. So they've targeted Al Fujairah. And Al Fujairah is important because it's one of the two ways you can get oil out of the Persian Gulf that don't go through the Strait of Hormuz. So Al Fujairah crosses the peninsula, as you can see there. It's a pipeline that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz, goes from the UAE on one side, virtually Dubai, across to Al Fujairah on the other. And fun fact, I've actually flown into airports in both places, both Al Fujairah and Dubai in the UAE. So Al Fujairah is really important. It's one of the two ways you can bypass a blockaded Strait of Hormuz. So the Iranians have reacted to the we'll blow up your oil terminal by saying, well, we'll see you and we'll blow up yours. So let's play a little clippy there. What have we got? That'll be you, I think.
Yeah, I've taken mine off. I've given you the full suite.
So in the last couple of days, this is Al Fujairah.
Wow. UAE, eh? Wow.
Now, do you notice there the caption says that it was caused by debris from a drone that was shot?
You're right. Debris. Do they make these things so insecure that a bit of debris could come down? And yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody's buying that, eh?
We see that all the time because by saying that, you don't have to admit that your missile defense failed. Didn't fail. We hit the thing. It's just, a few burning bits fell and that caused the fire. So you'll notice that's a common story. The West will admit, it got struck by a bit of debris.
Of course.
No, the Iranians smacked that with a drone or two and caused a massive fire.
Yeah, wow.
As I said,
crazy.
it's important because it's one of the two ways you can bypass the Strait of Hormuz. And here's the other one. So this is the 1,200 kilometre Trans-Saudi pipeline that goes from basically Qatar, or as I think my American friends call it, Qatar, across to
Qatar.
They do. It was really annoying in briefings. I was talking about Qatar. So you can ship oil across Saudi Arabia, across that 1,200 kilometre pipeline to a terminal just north of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. So they're the two ways you can potentially export oil from the Persian Gulf if the strait is blocked. Well, as you see, the Iranians have just struck one of those pipelines, Al Fujairah, and they're certainly capable of striking this Trans-Saudi pipeline if it comes to that. And both of these pipelines are workarounds. They do not have the capacity to replace the multiple large supertankers that were previously being filled. They're better than nothing, but they're not full replacements. And look, even if they were, you'll notice that the Trans-Saudi pipeline requires access to the Red Sea. So even if you can load your tanker in the Red Sea there, you've got to get out of the Red Sea, and there's two ways to do it. One is to go up through the Suez Canal, and I don't know whether the largest supertankers can get through that. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. Or you sail them out south through that little choke point that's circled at the bottom, and that's called the Bab el-Mandab. And you might remember that the Houthis, who are an Iranian allied group in Yemen, have been using anti-ship missiles to attack shipping in the Red Sea. And in fact, for a period of many months in the last couple of years, have closed shipping through the Red Sea, effectively closing the Suez Canal as well. So these two workarounds to a Strait of Hormuz closure are both potentially interdicted. You can stop both of them if you choose to.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of moving pieces, isn't there? Lots of moving pieces.
But Trump said it's just about over. Remember that?
No, good on you. I think it's
just
much
about
bigger. The problem is it's much bigger than Trump, and I'll make a comment later on when you finish with this section.
Anyway, the current picture is this. The strait remains closed, irrespective of what damage has been done to Iran proper by Amirali airstrikes. And this is important because, as I've said before, the US and the Iranians are not fighting the same war. So the Americans think they can bomb Iran into submission, and the Iranians think that they can blockade the strait and force the Americans into submission. So Iran's identified the key thing that they have to do is to close the Strait of Hormuz, and they've done it. Now, identifying this key point is a maxim of military planning that goes back centuries. So identifying the key target that you have to destroy to beat your enemy is called the Schwerpunkt. And the Schwerpunkt, or center of gravity, was a term used by Prussian General Clausewitz in his book in 1832. So he wrote Vom Krieg, which is On War, in 1832. This is one of the classic military strategy works of all time, up there with Sun Tzu's Art of War. And in fact, I've read both. And so Clausewitz said that you have to identify your Schwerpunkt and attack it. So the Iranians understand that the Americans' Schwerpunkt is closure of the strait, and the Americans think the Iranian Schwerpunkt is bombing them back to the Stone Age. But the Iranians are right and the Americans are wrong, and that's why no amount of bombing is going to win the war for America, because it doesn't do the thing that the Iranians are trying to do, which is, well, the opposite. Doesn't open the strait that the Iranians have closed.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I said before, I don't think Trump's read much military history, and I have. I've read about 50 years worth of it. And so I already know that bombing almost never causes your enemy to surrender. Simply bombing them almost never works. And there are many historical examples in the last century. So during the Blitz, London was bombed for 57 days straight, days and nights straight, by the Nazis. 40,000 citizens were killed, 1 million bombs were dropped, but this didn't knock Britain out of the war.
Mm.
And on the other side of the fence, Berlin, the capital of then Nazi Germany, was bombed 363 times over the 5 or so years that followed the Blitz. So 363 bombing raids, sometimes 1,000 bombers in a raid, sometimes less. And in the end, 80% of the city was destroyed. But you know what? Germany didn't surrender just because of bombing. Eventually they surrendered once ground troops occupied Berlin.
Mm.
So there's a couple of examples why the current American strategy, bombing the heck out of your enemies, is unlikely to cause them to surrender. And let's face it, that really has been one of the major stated goals of the war, regime change.
Same old play card, isn't it? It's happened all through time. Current time, anyway.
And perhaps the only example where you could argue, and people argue against this, but where you could argue that bombing did force the surrender of your enemy was the atomic bombings of Japan.
Mm.
Now, if that's true, and like I say, not all scholars believe that was the final straw, because Japan was starving, they were blockaded. The Soviets had just started invading as well, having freed up troops from the end of the war in Europe. But let's say that the atomic bomb really did force the surrender of the Japanese in 1945. Do we really want to go there? Is that our benchmark here? We'll nuke you to make you give up?
Mm.
And I might add that even when Japan did surrender after 2 nuclear strikes, they didn't get regime change. The emperor remained. That was one of the key conditions for surrender.
Mm.
So, yeah, the chance that conventional bombing will achieve regime change in Iran is minuscule, and the likelihood that atomic bombing would do it is also small. And I really hope nobody wants to test that out.
Mm. Well, yeah, I think most people are probably crossing their fingers and praying that that doesn't happen, mate.
And, perhaps the best comparator to today, the question is, will bombing force your opponent to surrender? Perhaps the best comparison is the Vietnam War. And the reason for that is because it was an asymmetric conflict. The war between England and Britain, England and Germany, and between America and Japan, they were conventional conflicts. They weren't asymmetric guerrilla conflicts. But Vietnam was an asymmetric guerrilla conflict, as is the America-Iran war. And they tried even harder in Vietnam than they did in the Second World War. They dropped 2.5 times as many bombs on Vietnam during the Vietnam War as were dropped in every theatre of war in the Second World War.
Wow, that's crazy statistic. Wow.
Now, in addition to that, they put 500,000 troops in on the ground, and they had air superiority, if not air supremacy. Vietnam did have a small air force, and they still lost. So Vietnam is smaller and less technological than Iran. It's easier to invade because you've got friendly countries around it, friendly bases. and Vietnam had far less combat power than Iran has. And even bombing it all to heck and putting 500,000 troops in there still was not enough. So this is why I say that the American strategy of bombing Iran is unlikely to achieve their war aims.
Yeah.
Now, nuking Japan aside, history shows us that you never get an opposing country to surrender, and you never get regime change just by bombing. You have to put troops on the ground. And as Vietnam showed, sometimes putting troops on the ground is still not enough. But you never get surrender of your opponent until you occupy them. And the US is actually starting to talk about that, with news that they're detaching a Marine deployment of about a bit over 2,000 men to the Middle East. So they're starting to talk about boots on the ground. Now, boots on the ground in the Persian Gulf would be an utter catastrophe. In fact, it's a total non-starter, in my opinion, because Iran is a very large country. It's very good defensive terrain, very mountainous. The Iranians have excellent industry for producing asymmetric weapons. Iran was a major source of IEDs in both the Iraq and the Afghan wars. They've got a religiously motivated population with a tradition of martyrdom. So the idea that the Americans could invade Iran is a pipe dream. It would be impossible to conquer. They failed in Iraq, which was a quarter the size and had a third of the population. And even worse, if you want to invade Iran, where are you going to stage your forces from? Where's the friendly base that you can supply them from? You can't get into the Persian Gulf. It's closed. Iraq, they already failed. And if they try and occupy Iraq again in order to attack Iran, they'll get another insurgency. So none of that's going to work. And as a historical comparator, back in the Iraq invasion, like I say, a third the number of population and a quarter the size of country, it took 5 months to build up the ground forces before they invaded Iraq. 5 months. And the invasion was a success, but then the occupation wasn't, and they lost after 8 years. And they had many, many troops on the ground, 500,000 troops on the ground, and 5 months to get ready for it. So to reiterate, when the Iraq invasion happened from Kuwait there, they had bases right next door, and they had an open Persian Gulf. So they could sail their logistic ships and their troop ships right up to Kuwait, let the guys off, get them organised, and then just hop over the border into Iraq. None of those things are possible here. So anything you hear about boots on the ground is a pipe dream. It can only end in the loss of all of the troops involved very quickly. And I seriously hope they never try it, because it's not possible.
Yeah, it's a definitely different war theatre, isn't it, this time? Yeah, it's almost bloody hell.
It is totally different to Iraq, much harder, and they lost in Iraq. We lost. I was there. I saw it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so much like, what was the beach there? Was it Normandy? Normandy, where we lost so many Allied troops trying to land on Normandy under massive hillside machine gun fire. Was it Normandy?
Yep. Well, that was an opposed landing, as was Gallipoli, by the way. And in both cases, they lodged troops ashore against resistance, and it was very difficult. But Gallipoli failed. They were contained. And Normandy succeeded, but their bases were like 50 miles away. They only had to cross the channel from England to get into Normandy. Where are we going to supply these troops from? How are we going to get them into Iran? They're like 1,000 kilometres from any friendly base. And Iran's already showed they can target those bases. Iran has been putting missiles into Israel. It's been putting missiles into Saudi Arabia. You don't have that safe staging area where you can put your guys ashore, build up the supplies and organise them, and then gig on. No, utterly impossible. So anything you hear about boots on the ground, you can immediately discount it. It's a pipe dream.
Yeah. Bruce, I'm just going to quickly ask the audience something, because obviously maybe they're very, very intent on listening to what you're saying, but very few comments coming in today. So I'm not sure whether all the platforms are being a little bit suppressed, but just if someone can just chuck a comment in, haven't seen one come in for a little while, and it might be just that they're listening intently.
Well, Gail said that.
Yeah, but I think that was just for Gail, because I think Trish said it's okay on her end. So maybe nothing. Just wanted to ask the question if someone could chuck a couple of comments in the chat to see whether everything's playing nicely. So I'm seeing it's streaming. I can see it's streaming. So on the platforms. Yeah. So whether or not people are being, whether. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's okay.
If not, people can replay it. It's replayed anyway. That's all right. It's saved wherever. So, yep. I think listen, I think it's more of this, Bruce, listening intently. I think this is a topic that people want to. It's a topic people really want to hear about, and you're bringing a great lot of insight into it, mate. So good on you.
And look, I hope people are interested, because I regard this as a turning point in world history. I think this will see the fall of the American empire. I think it'll see a complete change in energy availability in Australia and places who need energy exports. I think this may well be the death knell for Israel, which after all is highly dependent on economic and military aid from the US. I think when this ends, I think the US is no longer a military power in the Middle East. I think they're gone.
Well, be cool.
That's what I see happening. Let's see if I'm right.
You've been pretty right on a lot of things we've covered, Bruce. I mean, and then when you've been wrong, you've corrected yourself as well, which has been far and few between.
Nobody could have predicted this, Mark.
Yeah, common theme, that, isn't it?
All right, where were we? Okay, in a bit of a watching the show moment, I'm sort of pleased to see that the mainstream media has discovered the term asymmetric warfare and has started talking about it, because I've been using that term since the start. And yeah, it is. And not only are they realizing that the weapons being used are different, but it appears that they're realizing that the victory conditions are different too. So this story here is talking about the use of an asymmetric weapon, naval mines, and an asymmetric target, closure of the Strait of Hormuz, rather than air defense interceptors over Tehran. Good to see.
Yes, paying attention, watching the show. Good on you guys.
Righto. So what's it all costing? Well, initial reports say about $2 billion a day. So that's $2,000 million a day. And that's just in weapons expenditures. That's the cost of the missiles and munitions that they're expending, blowing up. Add to that the cost of the damage that they're causing, both in Iran and also the reciprocal damage in the Gulf states. And some commenters are saying that there were 27 US military bases in the region, all of which have been struck, and that all of their major early warning radars have been destroyed, all of them. And those large radars are $500 million to $1 billion each. So it's not just the cost of the stuff they're sending out, it's the cost of what's coming back as well. And it's massive. $2 billion a day is the rough estimate. And of course, that will all have to be rebuilt by the military industrial complex. You know, those radars that were lost, we're busy building more of them. The thousands of missiles that have been expended, they'll be busy building more of them. Yeah. And this is all non-productive expenditure. What have you got left after a missile hits a radar? What did you get for your $1 billion? Nothing. It's gone. You've vaporized a huge amount of wealth. And it's got a world, even if the strait reopens soon, and I don't think it will, but even if it reopens soon, the cost of this is baked into the American economy, which means the worldwide economy. All this
that's right. Affects all of us. That's right. affects all this,
It does. I'm already paying 70 cents a litre more for diesel.
Mm-hmm.
It affects me.
Yep, and then obviously the transport companies, Bruce, will always be getting the hit. Where does that cost go? It goes onto the supermarkets, and what do the supermarkets do? They've got to pass the cost on that, otherwise they go broke. I mean, the big ones that have squeezed out the little small ones over the decades, obviously they're probably a bit better sheltered, but still the prices. So you'll see it at the grocery store, you'll see it at the bloody petrol pump, you'll see it in all aspects of our lives.
Yep, it's inevitable. That money's been blown, and it'll be replaced with more printed money.
Yeah, amen. That's right.
And worse
it's
still,
like it's designed, Bruce. It's almost like it's designed, isn't it?
no one could have predicted this.
Mm-hmm.
Worse still, this week, Albo stood up and said that he wants Australia to be involved. So he's already announced that he's sending one of our airborne radar control aircraft, one of the E7s, the Wedgetails, is going to go to the Gulf. So they're sending one there. And obviously there'll be a major logistic effort to maintain that. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but it must be 100 to 200 people they've got to send to keep one aircraft in the air part-time. So that's going to be a pretty significant effort. But it doesn't matter. The real problem here is Australia stuck up its hand and said, we want to be on the losing side. Because let's face it, the Amirali's are going to be the losing side here. So we're sticking up our hand and saying to Iran, we want to be on the losing side.
Funny about that.
And Trump's already messaged out that he wants all the allies, he wants them in there with their weaponry. So he wants the French, the Germans, the British, the Australians, the Koreans. He wants them all to send warships to the Gulf so they can keep the Strait open. So what's happening next? We've sent one aircraft. How long before we send a ship? And how long before we lose a ship if we send a ship? And for what?
Yep.
All we're doing is saying to Iran, we want to be on the losing side here.
Yep.
Now, amazingly, Albo said that the Australian deployment is defensive in nature and that it's going to be used to defend against unprovoked attacks by the Iranians.
I thought defence was unprovoked attacks. All right. It isn't defence like we're talking about our country here. We're talking about our nation. And don't you defend a nation by not going into... Oh, anyway.
I'm glad you're laughing there because it is ludicrous. We all know who started this war and we all know that Iran's response to it is entirely justified.
Yeah,
the ones who are
no country will ever, depends on, regardless of the regime and how badly they might have been treating their people, the women, whatever, no country is ever going to stand by and have another country come in and start obliterating it and not do anything about it. I mean, how ridiculous is that even to make comments like that?
Yeah, as the police know, you know, if you walk into the middle of a domestic violence incident, both of the people in the room are going to try and stab you. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. All right. And
Mayfire.
Is Australia sending this token force, one aircraft, who knows, one ship, whatever, is sending that to the Gulf really in Australia's best interests? Now, Iran has already said that the Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, is only closed to American and Israeli ships and their allies. Well, that includes us. So we've stuck our hand up and said we want to be allies of America. And if we send an aircraft or warships, and we've certainly said we'll send an aircraft, that's merely going to signal to Iran, okay, the Gulf is closed to stuff that Australia wants to get out of it. And if you argue that the purpose of expeditionary warfare, the purpose of sending forces a long way out of your country is to defend it, in this case by keeping the resource flow open, well, it's completely the opposite. Sending Australian military forces to the Gulf is going to close those resources to us. It's not going to open them. So it's exactly the opposite of what you might think you're going to achieve. It's
Yeah.
batshit crazy, and it's causing us great damage for no benefit.
Yeah.
You depressed enough yet?
Well, I mean, this has been happening all through the eons, Bruce. It's I guess how do you think some of those nations felt when they were being invaded by some of those early? Well, it's been happening all through the decades, hasn't it?
Why were we in Gallipoli?
Millennia. Yep.
Why?
Mm.
Why were the Australian 9th Division in Libya? Why?
Yep.
Why was I in Iraq? Why was I in Afghanistan? Why?
Mm.
And this is far worse because those recent wars, Iraq and Afghan, they were relatively modest. We had a relatively small number of casualties and not much equipment lost. This is serious. If Australia gets involved here, we risk losing a lot of hardware and significant numbers of people.
Yep.
We can avoid that by not going, and we could keep the strait open to us by not going.
Well, it's all down to Albo, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, remember back to Howard, he was deputy sheriff to Bush. All right, so that's all a bit depressing. And in summary, what have we had in the last week? We've had more escalation in the Iran war. We've got Australia directly involved. The strait remains closed, and my petrol bills are massively increased. So last week's assessment remains true this week. Do not underestimate how serious this could get and how much this could change Australia and the rest of the world in the next who knows how long.
Yeah.
And if you and I are wincing at paying $2.70 for diesel or $2.30 for petrol, it could get a lot worse. Because this screenshot was sent to me by a friend of mine in Launceston in Tasmania. This was what was being charged this week at a service station in Tassie.
Wow, Gail.
$5 a litre.
Won't be going there, Gail. I hope that's not near you. Jeez.
That was in Lonnie, apparently. And I don't know if it's typical, but that was in Lonnie. So that's sort of my what's he said there? Hang on, that's not the one I want. It's that one. I know people want to sympathise with Islam, but it's a death sentence. I'm not talking about Islam here. I don't disagree with you, and we've spoken that many times. What I'm saying here is that we've bought into a conflict that is not going to turn out well for us. Irrespective of who the opponent is. And I'm not talking about morality or any of that. This is not the Crusades again. We are watching a developing conflict that's going to hurt the Western world badly. And it wouldn't matter if it was Muslims that were doing it or if it was Seventh-day Adventists. The effect would be the same.
Absolutely. And just before you move on to the next section, I did want to touch on that because this is kind of where my thinking is, and it's could be very naive or whatever, but I don't believe this is like all those things. It's about Iran and liberating Iran and all that. This attack on fuel, as we've talked about this before, Bruce, where people are waking up around the world. In regards, COVID did a massive thing. It woke a lot of people up. They're trying to silence and censor as much of the information as possible. The banking class has been wanting to get more control over us with and crash the global economy and crash money and nations and all that to enact a much bigger picture. And I believe this is not even about ideology and religion. And we've talked on at nauseum in nearly 100 shows about Islam. We've also not been shy in calling out the nation of Israel for their actions. You and I have both done that. And this is not about Jewish people, and this is not about Muslim people, and it's not about Christians. This is and I have said this many a times. This is a much bigger thing, and as a Christian, I believe this goes much deeper. then, and I believe that there is genuinely much bigger evil behind what's going on. This is about a certain class that want control over your lives. And you hear people complaining about, bringing their life to Jesus and going, oh, I want to submit my life to Jesus. But more and more people are actually willing to submit their lives to a government that wants to be a tyranny over you. They're more willing to submit themselves to a global power that wants to assert their dominance over you. And yet they criticize and bash people that openly and willingly accept someone as a savior, but then on the same point, criticize them for that, but then on the same point, follow these tyrants into subjugation and death. Like, there's a much bigger evil behind this, and there's a much bigger power play than just any nation or any ideology or whatever. It is, and I believe it's ultimately pure evil what's going on. So, but anyway, that's just my take on it. People can take it or leave it, ridicule, whatever. I've still got a lot to learn. I'm naive in a lot of ways, but that's just where I'm coming from. There's a lot bigger than just focusing on people of Muslim origin or Jewish origin or whatever. I believe this is all instigated to continue us hating each other and fighting against each other, while the people that are in real power continue to enact their machinations to control us further. So anyway, that's just my take on it.
And Gail there said that fuel in Hobart's $2.60, so the other end of Tassie. And look, I was hoping that $5 is not an aberration. Oh, sorry, is an aberration. But again, how quickly we habituate. Because basically we're saying, look, it's only $2.60, nothing to worry about.
It was only $1.50, bloody hell.
So, yep. So, hey, get ready. If people are already accepting $2.60, $2.70, next week it'll be $3. Who knows where it can end?
Yep.
Who knows?
Yep. Yep. Watch this space. Watch this space, peeps.
All righties.
Wow.
So
onwards and upwards.
I just gave you my own analysis, which is fairly pessimistic, but pessimism has served me well throughout my career, I must say. But if you don't want to go with my analysis, maybe just want to go with the government's analysis. So what have we got? We got the home by Christmas narrative. So it's all going to be over very soon. Although I did show you why that hasn't aged well in many occasions. And maybe things aren't going real well because there's been a few signs in the last week which suggest things aren't going real well. So only a couple of days ago, we had US Treasury Secretary Bessent pulled out of a live interview with Sky, like a long format live interview, because he got called away to the Situation Room to talk to the president. Now, he said he'd be gone 10 minutes. He came back 90 minutes later, and then he sat down at the second half of the interview. And the body language experts have been all over this and said that the man that went away is a different man to the man that came back. So the first half of the interview, he was confident, he was in control. When he came back, his demeanor was completely different. He was shaken, he was unsure, he was struggling to get words out, he was trembling. And so the analysis was he got told something in the 90 minutes that he was away that was very serious and very bad. So the question is, what did he get told? And this is what, maybe 2 days ago? Now, I don't know what he got told, but here's a few possible things you might want to think about. Did he get told that Bibi Netanyahu was dead? And there's been a number of stories going around that says he is dead. Did he get told that America was going to put ground troops in? Did he get told that the US or America were looking at nuking Iran? Did he get told that one of their major warships, like a carrier, had been hit? Did he get told they were going to have to pull a false flag on American soil to rally the troops around? Personally, I don't think he would be told that, so I don't think that's likely. Or did he get told that Iran has already got a nuke, which means it's over? And remember, that was another one of the victory conditions here, is to prevent Iran getting the nuke. Maybe he got told before he got it. So they're just a few of my suggestions. He got told something very serious while he was away, and we don't know what it was. But there's a few possibilities. And
Interesting.
if you want to see that interview and the body language reader take on it, do a Google search for the body language guy. That's him on the left. He's got about 1 million followers of his YouTube channel, where he goes through this. He looks at the interview and he says, okay, this is what I saw beforehand. This is what I saw afterwards. This is how I read it. So if you want to know body language analysis on the changes in Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, do a search for the body language guy. Now, one of the things I did mention there is that maybe the news was Bibi's dead. Bibi Netanyahu, maybe he's dead. And there have been multiple reports in the last few days saying that, in fact, that is true. They've basically agreed, or the government of Israel, I believe, has admitted that a missile struck Netanyahu's home and killed his brother. So presumably Bibi Netanyahu's not sleeping at home, but you've got to wonder if they've got that sort of precision with targeting of the Iranian missiles, maybe that's not ridiculous. And in fact, at the time, Netanyahu, who would normally be seen in public daily, had not been seen for 5 days. So people were flagging, hang on, this may not be good. And so a day or two after that, he did appear in this televised official, proof of life video. So he gave up and did a video, so a remotely conferenced speech to the nation. So that was the reply. Yeah, he's alive because here he is talking. Sure, he's in it's in videos. No, he's not rolling, strolling around the MCG or walking down Rundle Mall. But yeah, here's a video of him alive. Now, skeptics went through it frame by frame and said in one of the frames they found the old 6 fingers glitch, and that's a picture of it there. So not in every frame, but in one frame, they claim that his hand had 6 fingers in it.
No, he watches the show. He watches the show, Bruce. He watched the little segment that you did last week, where you showed the finger that the.
And as we said last week, one of the remaining telltales of AI generation is AI is not good with hands. So this was promoted as evidence that the whole clip was AI. And it wasn't all of it. It was only like in one freeze frame that an extra finger appeared. So some people said, well, hang on, this doesn't reassure us. So the day after that, Netanyahu appeared in a clip where he's going into a coffee shop, and he even jokes about the 6-finger problem. So he shows him, it's a response. He says, hey, I'm alive, and I even heard about that 6-finger thing yesterday, and it's not true. So he responded to it. So I'll show you that response.
מה שאלת אותי?
חושב שלא אומרים ברשת שאתה בכלל מת?
אני מת על קפה, אתה יודע מה? אני מת על העם שלי. איך הם מתנהגים, פנטסטי. אתה רוצה לספור את מספר אצבעות?
אתה יכול להראות לנו?
פה. ראית?
יפה מאוד.
לחיים.
חושב של המסר לאנשים שיוצאים ומתאווררים?
לצאת להתאוורר, אבל ליד מרחב מוגן. והעמידה שלכם היא מדהימה, נותנת כוח לי, לממשלה, לצה"ל, למוסד. אנחנו עושים דברים שאני לא יכול לשתף ברגע זה, אבל עושים דברים מכים באיראן חזק מאוד, גם ביום הזה, גם בלבנון, ממשיכים. אתם אומרים לי להמשיך? אני אומר לכולכם, גם אתם תמשיכו. תמשיכו להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, כל הזמן, להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, וגם לראשי הערים, להיות תמיד ליד מרחב מוגן. אנחנו נקל ככל שהדבר ניתן. ותודה לך על הקפה, הוא מצוין. אני לא יודע לגבי הקלוריה, זה נראה לי מסוכן מאוד.
Now you're going to translate, aren't you, Bruce?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not. But that was the response. Here I am, I'm alive, I'm buying coffee, and I even know what they said about the 6 fingers thing. So that was the immediate response. But the AI sleuths got themselves onto that as well and said there's a couple of things here make look like this is AI as well. So, for example, the hand does not look right. They say the hand which is holding the coffee cup, they said, for a start, nobody holds a coffee cup with spread fingers. And you try it yourself. You might put one finger under it, but you don't spread them out like a claw. And in fact, when I look at that, it almost looks like that hand is floating a bit away from the coffee cup. It's not sufficiently hanging on to it to not spill it. So I think that's a reasonable point. And maybe this is another example of the old, fingers glitch with AI. So you've got that there.
Maybe he was just trying to promote the brand of the coffee on the cup, Bruce.
Yeah. Righto. Okay, so I've shown you that one. All right. But there was a bit more as well, because it was also pointed out that the behavior of the surface of the coffee didn't look like it was following real physics either. So let me show you that one. Oops, there we go. Let me show you that one.
I was going to say, when I first saw it, it's like he's got himself a haircut. He normally has a bit puffy hair. He looks a bit cleaner in the face. But yeah, it's like, I guess they do pretty good masks these days too, Bruce, don't they? So who knows?
All righties. Now, there's no sound with this one, but just watch the behavior of the surface of the coffee there. So he picks it up. It's got the white crema. And then as he moves it, he tilts it and he moves it. And even though it's full, it doesn't spill. And in addition, it goes that sort of coffee color at both sides. Even when he tips it there, it looks like the inside of the cup is orange colored, not white colored. I don't know if they do orange colored coffee cups back there in Israel. But again, for the internet sleuths who go, well, hang on, this looks a bit AI, I have to agree. I think it does look a bit AI.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sold, brother. I'm not sold. There's so many things where people can say something's AI. The thing is, I think it's all designed to confuse people. Even the people that say something's AI or not AI. It's all designed to take the eye off the ball and what's actually going on. It's so hard, isn't it? Because everybody points now. They go, "Oh, that's AI." Just don't know.
Well, I'm just saying people seem to be asking reasonable questions about this.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you got to be asking those questions.
And while I've got you, I might just, before I finish out, I'll play you the clip of Scott Bessent's demeanour changing halfway through the...
because you did have the link for that.
As well, that an interviewee's been pulled away to go to the Situation Room. How was the president? Was he stressed?
No, the president is in great spirits. The Iranian mission is proceeding well ahead of schedule. And I have to tell you, Wilf, that I've a teenager who's considering military service, and I could give this team my highest compliment, from President Trump to the head of the Joint Chiefs to the Secretary of War. I would say that I would trust my child's life in their hands.
Wow. That's
So
a really funny comment to make, isn't it? Yeah.
the body language people said, you know, in the first half of the interview, he had a much more controlling body language. He was using his hands like a conductor in an orchestra to make his points. He was leaning forward, and as he was making points, he was nodding to say, I agree with what I'm telling you. When he came back, he was, and as he was saying, the president's in great spirits, he was shaking his head. He wasn't nodding that he agreed. He was, and these are all little things that the body language people pick up on. So, like I say, if you want to have a look at body language analysis, go to the body language guy and see what he said. It's just another piece of, hey, question everything. Question everything.
No, well, definitely. I mean, I think most people following us would definitely be questioning many things. It's yeah, definitely. And Gail makes a good point here too. Like they've had this sort of technology in Hollywood and theaters for decades, and it's only got more and more advanced over time. And often people were saying about Biden when he was going through his bloody, dementia-ridden interviews and that, whether it was actually Biden, and they had so many, Biden doubles and triples and quadruples and stuff. So look, I'm definitely open-minded to it all. It's you definitely have to be aware now. If you're following this show, you've got to be a bit of a critical thinker.
We're allowed to ask questions, I think is all we're saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, do you know what? We're still in the update section. Can you believe it?
An hour and a half in, holy McDooley.
Now, here's an update on home storage of fuel. And we talked about that a week ago. And I said, if you're able to do it, it's probably prudent to have a jerry can or two in storage for times like this. Now, the government and the authorities, in this case, the RACQ, Royal Automobile Club of Queensland, have started rolling out the don't do this messages. And they've done it in many ways. They've had the dirty hoarders label that snuck out at one point. They've had the it's dangerous to store at home story. And they've had the there's no point in doing it because the storage life of fuel is only 3 months. So they're three that I saw this month. But that's a lie. As I told you last month, I have successfully stored both petrol and diesel for 2 years using an appropriate fuel stabiliser in a cool, dry place in a plastic jerry container, and it was fine afterwards. And not just fine putting it in an old Massey Ferguson, I put it in modern cars and it ran fine. So the experts either not experts or they're lying to you.
Well, without the risk of gazumping, they want us to use substandard fuel, Bruce.
Yeah, and I haven't gone into that. I think it's a technicality based on the amount of sulfur rather than saying, it's got water in it. But they are calling it dirty fuel, aren't they? And you've got to wonder whether that, again, is to discourage people from using it.
Yeah. Well, the other theory is, the dirty, petrol vehicles tanks and, muck up the engine and destroy the engine and make people, take up EVs, Bruce. Isn't that what they're pushing towards? And
I've already started seeing this is a reason to buy an EV stories coming out. I'm sure you have too. And our Labor government saying, well, this just proves that the green dream is worthwhile. Yeah, okay, what's the backup to the green dream? Diesel and gas. And remember, if you want abundant fuels, what about coal? We've got hundreds of years of that in the ground. Yeah, we've got some of the best coal in the world. Beautiful, beautiful coal. Oh, big, beautiful coal. Big, beautiful coal. Right. Okay. We're moving away from the Iran war now, and we've got another update, and this is an update on the moon mission. And that's been part of our stack for a while with the initial story, like, did they really go to the moon? Here are some physics challenges to, well, we're going to find out this week because they're sending another crew up to, we've got to do some repairs. That might be off for a couple of years, maybe forever. Well, this week we're back to, we'll probably get going in April, but do notice the date. So the Artemis mission is apparently back on for 1st of April.
Oh, there you go.
So I think I might just await developments on that one rather than believe anything.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Hey, everything to distract the normies.
Wouldn't it? Right.
Imagine
What
what,
else? Have we got?
imagine what multi-trillion dollars of space attempts for space exploration and furthering mankind could have done for the rest of the world and the third world poor countries. But anyway, let's aspire to get to Mars, shall we?
Yeah. All right, on to the show proper then.
Have we got anybody still around? I don't know. We've still got people watching.
Hard to say, isn't it? They're probably all outside slitting their wrists.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit. I mean, that first segment was a little bit heavy, wasn't it? I guess, but I mean, it is heavy times, and I guess you're obviously, concerned about it. Obviously, as you mentioned, so it's something that you wanted to spend a bit of time on. So it's obviously, yeah, don't see you overly concerned about too much, but that's obviously really piqued your interest.
Like I say, pessimism has served me well up to now. All right, so what we got here, we got a bit in the easy being green segment, and the story this week is about the CO2 fertilization effect. And we talked about that before. CO2 is plant food. It's what they eat. And as a result, as CO2 rises, plants, by and large, other things being equal, become more productive. They grow better. And in fact, if you're a commercial greenhouse grower, there's two things you do, is you heat your plants up by putting them in a greenhouse, and you pump CO2 into it because the plants grow better. And this story says that since 1960, the rising CO2 levels have increased what they call CO2 fertilization, such that photosynthesis, energy production in wheat's gone up by 1/3 and in soybeans by, what was it, 1/10? So there's a significant positive to rising CO2 levels. And it's another example of those positive feedback loops or negative feedback loops. So if something changes, you get a second order effect that opposes it, so the change doesn't run on forever. So we don't just get hotter and hotter because the CO2 goes up, because when the CO2 goes up, the plants grow better and the plants cool the planet and also absorb the CO2. So the second thing is that because the CO2 in the air is going up, the way the CO2 gets into the leaf is through a pore called a stoma, and they open and close depending on how much CO2 the plant's taken in. And you don't just want them open all the time, because at the same time as CO2 is getting drawn in, water vapor is getting out. So if your pores are open for longer, the plant needs more water. So the converse is, if the CO2 rises, the plants don't have to have the pores open as long to get the CO2 in, which means they don't lose as much water at the same time. So that's another negative feedback loop. Plants get more efficient, both growing and using water, as CO2 rises. That's great. Righto. I don't know if the greenies are aware of that.
Oh no. Well, the Greens aren't about the environment anymore. They're about all these other social agendas, Bruce. You know that.
Communism, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Now, in the health segment, in a case of about bloody time, this recent large Rasmussen poll from the US has said that a majority of Americans now believe that the COVID injections cause mass deaths. 56% of them now believe that. About bloody time, I would have thought. Which is, of course, bad news for our new CDC commissioner. And it's Zoe Wainer. You did ask me who it was.
I was only tongue in cheek, because Jane Helton is obviously part of the, Event 201. She's part of CEPI. She's part of all the bloody, vaccine hesitancy kind of, discourage vaccine hesitancy organisations. She wants everybody to uptake like Bill does.
Now, the new pandemic czar, Zoe, wants to do two things. One is to rebuild trust in vaccines, and to rebuild the evidence base. What evidence base for the safety of these things? You know, it's already there, it's just suppressed. So here's what it says about her. So Zoe Weiner, a medical doctor, academic and policy leader, and now inaugural head of Australia's new independent CDC, Centre for Disease Control, is under no illusions about the challenge of rebuilding trust among pockets of the population who have lost trust in vaccines. Well, maybe she should ask whether the loss of trust is justified rather than just working out how to get it back. Maybe you shouldn't get it back. Maybe you should admit the Titanic's sinking rather than trying to reassure people. Now, she says that these pockets of population lost trust in vaccines and are angry at what they saw as unjustified intrusions into individual liberty during the COVID-19 pandemic. Correct. How about you start with an apology rather than trying to rebuild trust?
Yeah, well, none of that's happened apart from Carl, obviously. Carl had quite a high profile, and at least he's come out and apologised for his role during the pandemic. So maybe the bureaucrats and politicians could take a leaf out of Carl Stefanovic's book.
And a reminder of what apologies consist of. So to apologise, you've got to do three things. You've got to say, I did this. It was wrong. This is how I hurt you. This is how I'm going to fix it. So three things. I'm joking.
See, someone's playing AI tricks on our stream already, Bruce.
I did this. It was wrong because this hurt you in this way, and this is how I'm going to make it better. That's what an apology consists of, if anybody's interested. Not just, how can we rebuild trust? Well, you can start off by bloody apologising for getting it wrong and hurting people. You may not get trust.
That's right. And for making sure that I don't make the same serious mistake again.
Yep. Okay, and in a related story, more bad news for the vaxophiles with this US study saying that your risk of autoimmune muscular disease, it's called polymyalgia rheumatica, something tends to happen in older people where their muscles just get inflamed and painful. Well, apparently the risk of you getting that went up 68 times if you took the COVID shot. 68 times. Now, the reason this is interesting is because we've discussed how the aluminium adjuvanted vaccines can cause autoimmune disease. So you inject your body with a dead protein, your body doesn't regard it as an infection, so you have to add in something to set off the fire alarm. That something is aluminium. So those two things together, your body says, we're under attack, send out the troops. But if it mistakes what the attacker is, it might create immunity to your pancreas cells, to peanuts, to allergies, to gluten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that aluminium adjuvanted vaccines can cause this improper cross-reactivity and autoimmune disease. What I wasn't so aware of is that the COVID shots, which don't use an adjuvant, can do it as well. And that's really bad. One of my theories is that Big Pharma knew that aluminium was a problem. And that was one of the reasons why they were pushing the mRNA platform, because they knew that sooner or later they couldn't use the aluminium anymore. So they needed a new vaccine platform, and that was going to be mRNA. And the mRNA doesn't need aluminium because it's not giving you a dead protein and saying react to it. It's giving you the instructions for building proteins of your own. You don't have to wake it up. You're giving it the blueprint. You're putting the blueprint into the machine and saying print that. So it's bad if, and we knew this already, but autoimmune disease can be caused by mRNAs which don't have adjuvants. And the mechanism presumably is whatever protein that your body is being instructed to print by the mRNA, it's going to be similar to something else in your body which cross-reacts to it the same. And that's presumably how these massive increase in polymyalgia rheumatica, autoimmune muscle pain, came about.
Now, just to clear things up for people, always knows as a news study, so it hasn't come up as being peer reviewed yet, is it? Like, because I mean, you obviously can talk into the whole peer review stuff and other stuff. I mean, is that right, or has this particular study been peer reviewed?
The fact that Nicholas Hulch is bringing it out suggests probably it's in preprint, and he says a new study. So I don't know, but my guess is not yet. But I might add, there's an alternative name for peer review, and it's called PAL review.
Yeah, PAL, yeah, that's right. We found out a bit about that over the years, haven't we?
So you only get your study published if your pals in the industry agree that you're saying the right things. And the classic example is the whole green scam. You try being Ian Plimer and coming out with a independent study showing that, you know, CO2 doesn't cause anthropogenic global warming. That won't get through peer review because all the peers are your enemies. Their job is to keep the information tightly held and to exclude heretics like you from getting your stuff published.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, peer review is almost a signal that you can't trust a study rather than the other way around.
Yeah, same as the old trusted articles,
News
medical
network.
articles. Yeah, trusted news. Yes, trusted news initiative. Trusted news. Anybody that comes out with like trusted news initiative is like, really? That is just an automatic reason to go, well, maybe I'm not so sure about that. It's like, you know, trust the experts and all that.
Couldn't we have like a single government sole source of, what was that doing thing? The sole source of trust or something? Sole source of truth.
Yeah, that's
good
what
if we could just have a single government approved sole source of truth. That'd save everybody a lot of trouble.
That was that lovely lady from New Zealand, wasn't it? Jacinda Ardern, wasn't she the one? We will be the single source of truth.
And apparently she's moved to Australia.
Well, she has. And I wonder, there's always, we're the testing bed for everything. I mean, surely she's just come to Australia because she wants to pal up with a friend, Karen, maybe to scheme things. I don't know.
Didn't we have some sort of program for sending Kiwi criminals back home?
I don't know if that was abolished, but anyway, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. I don't know if they'd welcome her back anyway, would they? I don't know.
Yes. All right. Money and finance. Not a huge amount of change, but remember, it's only a week. So we've had small drops in the precious metals, not the 10% up that silver's been doing most weeks, but a few percent down. Stock market down a bit, price of oil down a bit. And I put Brent there. There's actually 3 or 4 major oil prices, depending on where you're buying your oil. So Brent is more or less oil that goes to Europe. You've also got WTI, West Texas Intermediate, which more or less is the American price. And you've got a thing called Murban, which is the Gulf price. And Murban is well over $100 at the moment, presumably because you can't get it out. And note there, Bitcoin up 9%. And again, I'm still wondering whether that reflects buying pressure by people who are fleeing the Middle East and want to get their money out. So they're converting a lot of money in the Dubai bank into Bitcoin so they can just leave the country and access it anywhere in the world.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Yeah, causing that bit of spike. Yeah, causing that bit of a spike. That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's well off its highs, but there you go.
Yeah. But you did say that. You have said many a times it's a bit volatile.
And why would oil be down this week? Is the Middle East stuff, is that all over, is it?
Yeah. What is that? I figure. Doesn't
is
make
it the
sense,
bombing of Karg Island that brought that down, or was it the strike on Al Fujairah? What was it? All right. Diversity is strength section.
Oh.
So here we've got a story from London and a bit of a sign of the times, I'm afraid, that London buses and other public access areas are going to start to feature hemorrhage control kits, stab kits, pretty similar to defibrillators. You know, you walk down a train station, there'll be a defib on the wall somewhere. Well, London is apparently moving to put stab kits on the wall. And that's a bit sad. So why do we need stab kits on the wall?
Yeah, that's very interesting, Bruce. Because it could have been that people just are getting stabbed more often, and maybe there's more machetes. That's really weird. I wonder how long it'll be before you get banned for having butter knives. How are you gonna spread butter on bread? Maybe with a spoon, Bruce. But then maybe I've seen people get harmed with spoons as well.
Maybe you could have some sort of screening process and then licensing of butter knives. I don't know.
You have to be the right kind of citizen, Bruce. Maybe
You need a permit.
that wouldn't work because then that would go against the DEI scenario, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because I don't want to get. Oh dear, it's been a little while since I gazumped you, brother.
6-finger gazump strike.
Yeah, good on you.
Okay, so fun fact, knife crime has doubled in the last decade in the UK, now up to 53,000 cases a year. Now, I had a bit of a theory about why that might have happened, so I thought I might look at the ethnic makeup of knife crime offenders, and that was extremely difficult to find. I downloaded a few official UK government reports, which went extensively into the demographics of both the perpetrators and the victims. So there was age, there was where they lived, there was a sex breakdown. You try and find an ethnicity breakdown, I just couldn't find it. It was almost impossible. I wonder why that is for a start. But what we did find was this. This was a question that was asked of a London mayor by the British National Party a few years ago. And so what the questioner asked the mayor was, in light of the Metropolitan Police's recent figures for knife crime, can the mayor recognise that 42% of knife crime is carried out by the African Caribbean community, who only make up 9% of the population? So I couldn't find that in any demographics in any official report, but I did find it here where a question was asked of a mayor that. So it would appear that there is a certain demographic group that seems to be a little bit prone to using knives. Now, even though in most official publications I could not find out the demographics of the attackers, it was pretty easy to find out the demographics of the victims. So most of the reports would tell you pretty much the same story, which is that the African community in Britain was disproportionately represented as an offender. So they were collecting the demographics. They knew what he was. But they were happy to say that, the poor black citizens are getting stabbed all the time, but they weren't happy to say by other black citizens. For some reason, that data was unavailable, except in this sort of minor question that I asked.
Of course.
Now, that made me wonder what the figures are here, because, again, I just don't know what the ethnic and demographic breakdown of offenders in Australia is. So I'm only left to speculate. And what they call OSINT, open source information, made me wonder whether it is a similar demographic to what was reported in the UK. Now, of course, alcoholics are told that the first thing they've got to do is admit they have a problem if they want to get better. So you would have thought in policing that would be true as well. The first thing you want to do if you're going to address a criminal behaviour is you might want to look at who's doing it. Maybe that would be a good idea.
True.
But any attempt to be honest about this, of course, immediately gets shut down as racist. And that was the case in this VicPol seminar, which was held last year, where the attendees were told by the presenter that African crime gangs were the main source of machete violence in Melbourne. Now, these are police figures. You imagine maybe they would know. So what happened? There was a storm of protest. They were attacked as being racist, and basically they were not allowed to say that anymore. And that, of course, is a way of making the problem go away. If we simply refuse to collect statistics on the demographics of the offenders, then there's no way anyone can know whether there's a particular demographic that's responsible. So they can't get a bad name even if they deserve it.
Yeah.
So the alcoholic's not going to get better.
And this is the problem where a lot of people are critical about it, right? Is like, okay, you've got a problem. Why hide these things? Because once you, because people become more skeptical and maybe over egg the pudding if the figures aren't there, right? So if you hide the figures, people will make their own mind up, and this is how it happens, right? And people are saying it's not like you go and say, oh, every African person or every person of a different pigmentation, skin color is bad, but at least if you pinpoint, like if you have the accurate data, you can say, well, okay, there's a problem here. Let's address what's the, what is the exact demographic? What's the type of person? What's leading them to that? Is it their background, their culture, whatever? I mean, it's all about transparency, honesty, and accountability, isn't it? It's like, but when you don't supply those figures and you hide the figures, people will make assumptions and they will over egg the pudding.
Look, there's three examples I can think of there, and in all cases, they know the data, but they're too heavily invested in the program to admit it. So the first one would be the vaccine program. Do any of us really believe that the vax companies have never done proper safety trials? Of course they have. They've suppressed them. They know what the problem is. They dare not let it get out. So that's one. The vaccine project is too big to fail. The next one is the green dream. So the push towards wind power and solar power, they know the problems with it. They know it's making our grid more fragile. They know that the prices are going up because of it. They know it's introducing major safety risks with fires. And they know that they can't do it at scale anyway, because beyond about 60% of renewables in your grid, it fails. It all goes black at some point. And we couldn't push to beyond 60, even if we wanted to, because we don't have the materials. We can't mine the copper using batteries for a start. We can't build the infrastructure that's required. But again, government is too heavily invested in this project to ever admit that there's any problems with it. And the final one is this third one, it's multiculturalism. They know what the problems are, but they're so heavily invested in it, they cannot possibly admit them. All they can do is attack people that blow the whistle.
Yep.
That's the way.
Yep.
All righties. Now, while I'm on the topic, I don't know what's in these UK stab kits, but I'm going to make a few points that might be helpful to people, because I have a wee bit of experience in dealing with hemorrhage, both blunt and sharp. And so I thought before I finish this topic, I might just run through a few handy tips, if you like. And I'm drawing this from a handout that I used to give to general practitioners who used to come to my trauma workshops. And I had a module that was called How to Really Stop Bleeding. And so I'd give them the handout. And so that's me in younger days. That would be in Iraq. Looking at the color of the uniform, that would be the Iraqi desert camp. So that would be 20 years ago. I don't think I've really changed at all. What do you think?
It's amazing what COVID will do. It's amazing what COVID tyranny will do. Well, you said when you're able to fly your flag the right way up again, you'll probably shave again, won't you, Bruce?
That's right. Yeah, I don't have a razor in the cupboard already.
I think it'll be a long time coming before you have to shave the beard, brother.
Okay, so here's a few pearls about stopping serious bleeding. And I'm not talking about, dripping cut on your finger. I'm talking about bleeding that can kill you. Yeah. So our vascular surgeon in Kandahar used to wander around the hospital sticking a finger up and doing an ET impression and saying, "I can stop you bleeding with one finger." And the point she was being made is that the key to hemorrhage control is to press on whatever's bleeding. Children know this. If a 5-year-old cuts their finger, they scream, they grab it, and they run for help. Mom! Or as we used to say, direct pressure elevation, expedite transport to care. So a 5-year-old knows what to do with a bleeder. Put pressure on it, elevate it if you can, and expedite transport to care. So the key to stopping anything bleeding is to put your finger on it, to counter pressure it. You know, if you put your finger over the end of a hose, it'll stop.
Mm-hmm.
And a hose
Yep.
has probably got several times the pressure of your blood pressure. So you can do it with a hose, you can certainly do it with an artery. So the best thing is find out whatever's bleeding and just press on it.
Mm.
That really works. Okay, next tip. If you're going to use a bandage, you can't just cover it up with a bandage. And this is what most people do. They find out whatever's bleeding and they just cover it up by wrapping a bandage around it. That doesn't work because it doesn't put enough pressure into the wound. So if you've got something seriously bleeding, you've got to stuff your fingers into the hole, preferably with some packing material as well. A bandage if you've got it, your T-shirt, whatever, but you're stuffing it into the hole until it stops. You're not just covering it up by wrapping it around it. Okay. What else have we got? Tourniquets we've talked about. Good to see that they're sort of coming back into civilian use, all the shark bite stuff. And the points we made previously, they've got to be tight. And you can see in that improvised tourniquet, they've got a stick that they're using as a windlass. So you stick it through the bandage, T-towel, whatever it is, and then you crank it round till it gets tight. And, of course, military tourniquets come with their own windlass crank. So they've got to be tight and they've got to be wide. You know, no just wrapping a rope around your leg. If you're a surfer, you've got to wrap the rope 10 times around in a spiral to give it some width. Narrow tourniquets, paradoxically, do not work. You need wide tourniquets. Okay. And here's an interesting idea that I'm actually reasonably proud of. In extremis, you can stop people bleeding anywhere in the lower half of their body by pushing so hard in the solar plexus that you squash the aorta flat against the vertebra at the back. That's called manual aortic compression. And I learned this technique in Afghanistan, actually, and it really works. And when I say put a lot of pressure, you put as much pressure as you can. And in fact, what you really need to do is to kneel with your knee on that spot and put 70% of your body weight on it. That will stop bleeding from below.
So if someone's lost a leg or something like that and you got nothing to whatever I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? The person's going to bleed out. So you may as well try and bloody put a knee in the bloody sternum to try and bloody, save them.
You can use it for stabbing, a lower half of body stabbing or gunshot or anything, as well as limb injuries if you can't control them. And this really works. So what's the worst thing that can happen? You know what the worst thing that happens in my experience is that the person wakes up and says, "Get off me." I'm not kidding you. They regain consciousness and say, "That bloody hurts."
Yep. Funny about that. And if they don't wake up, well, they're in a bad way anyway.
And I said I was proud of it because, in fact, I was the author of this paper, which we published in 2020 when I was part of the ambulance service in South Australia, where we actually demonstrated you could do this in the fields rather than a hospital. You could actually do this on the roadside and get the patient all the way to hospital with you perched on the stretcher with a knee in the guts. And we did this on 4 occasions and 2 of them survived. So this was 2 people who looked dead. And we got, 4 people who looked dead in the field, on the roadside. There was a stabbing, there was a vehicle accident, there was an obstetric hemorrhage, and I can't remember what the other one was. We got them all to hospital and 2 of them left hospital alive. So that might just interest people. That's the furthest. This is first aid. This is first aid,
Yeah, no, well, you never know when it could come in handy.
I would like to see, how nowadays if somebody collapses, the immediate first aid is CPR. I would like to see this used if somebody is unconscious or severely shocked from bleeding. I'd like this to be the first aid treatment, and I'd call it knee PR.
Nice, boom tish.
And
like
I
it.
tried to get the ambulance people to actually give you instructions for this over the phone. You know, if you ring up an ambulance on the phone and say, look, I'm with a collapsed person, they will tell you how to do CPR over the phone. I would like it if you rang up and said, I've got someone who's stabbed and passed out. I'd like them to teach you how to do knee PR over the phone as well. And maybe in the fullness of time that'll happen. But
I like it.
I regret I've
like
failed to get, despite publishing this paper and preaching it, I've failed to get that widely adopted.
Yeah, and over it's all the men that are going to start carrying around tampons now. They start sticking a tampon in a hole, in a stab hole, or
yeah. You'd have to press on top of it as well, though. You'd have to.
Yeah, and CU double says like expect fecal matter by kneeling on someone like that.
Well, in my experience, I haven't seen that, but hey, whatever.
It might push it. Yeah, depends on how recently someone's eaten or just they need to go to the bathroom. But anyway, that's the last thing you want to worry about.
I have travelled from Modbury Hospital in the periphery of Adelaide all the way into the Royal Adelaide Hospital, kneeling with my knee in the guts of the patient, in the back of the ambulance, out of the ambulance, on the stretcher, into the hospital, upstairs, into the operating theatre, and I'm still there. And the surgeon goes, what do you want me to do? And I say, I'm not getting off until you've got that controlled. So they've got to operate around you until they clamp it. And like I say, 2 out of 4 survivors went home well.
There we go. Not bad, 50-50 chance. I like those odds, 50-50.
Oh, these were inevitably dead people.
Yep, fair enough.
And it's a first aid measure. It's nothing heroic. It's a first aid measure.
Yep.
All right. Final story. What's the time? Oh, 7:01.
2 hours.
Get out of here and I can go.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a little while but I just remembered that our recap stories were actually longer than some of the other stories. But we did spend a bit of time on Iran because it needed a bit more time.
Yeah, and
just as well you did it when you did it, because otherwise, it's a long stretch.
Here's my shame, Isuzu Australia shame. So that is the plastic capping on the end of the step on my D-Max. And I don't know if you can see there, but it's got a bit of a crack in it because I drove over a stick on my road and the stick flicked up and broke it. So it's not gone, it's just cracked. So when I was in at Isuzu, I said, how much can you get me another one of those? And they said, yeah, we can. It'll be $232.
Wow.
And I said, I'll be taking it off and repairing it. If I can't repairing it, I'll be leaving it off. Thank you.
Wow, $232 for a little bit of plastic. Now you think with all the, like you said, 3D printing, there's so much bloody of this stuff now. Like it'd be a dime a dozen. It probably cost them friggin' $10, $15.
Yeah. It'd be less than that. This is a genuine Subaru. It's a genuine Subaru. Plastic cap. They make these anyway. They have lots of these in stock. If you want to put a side step on your vehicle, it's part of the pack. They're making thousands of these. And from my experience, they're probably breaking the odd one too. It's not something they've got to go away and get made in Japan or sent out or computer printed. It's an item that they've got hundreds, if not thousands of in the country already, and they want $232. No, not happening. Not happening, Isuzu. Not happening.
Nah, mate. Nah. Not doing it, mate.
What can I buy for $232?
Well, you could probably buy, I reckon, 5 bottles of red.
Oh no, I can get 10 casks of my Moscato for that.
10 casks. Well, yeah,
Musket, I should say.
musket.
I can get
Yeah.
9.5 casks. But no, I'm just thinking, if you go on eBay or Temu, I can buy a small portable welder. I can buy a computer monitor. This is a bit of plastic.
You know what you could do? Bruce? I mean, I reckon you can definitely fix it. It's plastic, so you just get a bloody something very hot, and you melt the plastic back together, a bit of putty and a bit of paint, and you'd probably be able to do that for $50 with the materials.
You're
Sand
talking
it back.
welding.
Yeah,
You're talking welding.
Plastic welding, mate. It'll be right.
Yep. I'm back to welding school tomorrow, by the way, my second last day of welding class.
Well, mate, we want to see pictures now. I want to see your repair job. I reckon you'll actually do this. Knowing you're a bit of a person, eye for detail. I reckon we need an update. Let's see what the audience thinks, Bruce, whether they reckon we should have an update on Bruce's plastic welding skills.
I like it. And if I fail, I'll just pinch one off somebody in the car park.
If you absolutely trash it, it'll end up being a stolen one, righto. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. That's funny.
And that
That's
would be
all,
that,
folks.
Marcus.
Yeah, look at you go. Oh, well, we did well. We still kept it on around the 2-hour mark, so that's all right. Yep. What is that? $10,000 to replace a heat plug in his diesel. What was it? A friggin' Kenworth. Holy dooly. Wow.
To fire this, that'd be an injector, most likely.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
Or it could be a preheater, your glow plug.
I was saying,
But
whatever the part's called to fire the cylinder. To fire the cylinder. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Love the Awakenings, a welder too.
Oh, well, there you go.
2 years. I've done 6 days of my 8-day course. So standing in a welding booth, just laying down beads for 8 hours a day. It's hard work. If you all the apprentices are there from trades coming in, and it's like starts at 7 a.m. You stand up all bloody day. That's hard work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right. But anyway, legends, well done. Thanks for bearing with us again as usual. That's nice. Nice to see. We cracking the 2 hours. We still have heaps of people joining us for that amount of time. So, and as always, mate, thanks heaps. You put quite a bit of effort into this. It doesn't need to be said again, but you volunteer the community. You've done lots of stuff to support many people throughout your life. So continue to say thank you, brother, and glad to have you in my life, and glad to be in the trenches with you, brother. So
actually,
you have your.
You just reminded me too. I did a fire call today as well, which was a bit sad because it was actually drizzling with rain, but it's still within what's called the fire danger season. So some hunter was burning off his pile of leaves, and he'd put the effort in, like he'd raked up the leaves, and he was just burning the piles off. So it was causing really no hazard, and he was hazard reducing. But yeah, the cops drove past and said it's fire danger season, sunshine. So they called us out to put it out, even though it was raining, which all seemed a bit sad. And you'll probably get fined for that as well. So that might go into the government overreach section. What do you reckon?
Well, maybe. I'm pretty sure the bucket will be full. There's always something coming up to the show. I don't think you ever run out of content, my friend.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good.
Yep.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Let's do it. Let's undo this thing.
Well, let's undo this thing and move it on. Good on you guys. Well, thanks heaps. Enjoy the week, and we'll see you all again for Wow Bruce episode. We've got a ton next week.
Our last episode.
Now you know what the audience said. The comments come in thick and fast, mate. I think you were outvoted, mate, to be honest. So, but anyway, we'll see you after that as well.
Good to get a bit of engagement, I thought.
It was nice. Good on you. God bless. Take care.
Ciao all.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. Oh, the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day, a song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.